Part 168. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1676. The Plastic Energy Department rejoices. The evocation is ecstatic. The evocation department, the branch that studies light magic, almost wanted to rush out of the Mage Tower, and then hold hands and dance around the Tower of Babel. New spells. New powerful spells. Powerful spells like never before. Although some people have made it by mistake by using ruby to stimulate strong light. However, the strong light excited before can only be used for lighting or something, and its lethality and directivity are very worrying. Use strong current to pass through rubies of a specific shape to stimulate directional strong light, and then use magic to amplify it into lethal light. This magical path has just been passed through. Archmage Philby has opened the way, and then what kind of rubies should be used, how strong the current should be, and what kind of spell model can amplify the lethality. It's up to them to explore on their own. Long live Archmage Philby! Long live Thunderhorn! The Horn of Thunder once again benefits the entire school of evocation. It is indeed the most powerful academic organization of the energy-shaping school in the past 100 years, and it has produced 2 legends in a row. I hope it will release a 3rd legend and a 4th legend soon. Well, when will our Twilight Saga also release a legend? Have you seen Master Philby's paper? It said that it was about testing gemstones of different shapes and materials, and testing current and voltage. These are all details. The most important thing is to study why strong light is excited when electric current enters the gem. Level 17 Archmage Kathleen Heselden smoothed her thick brown hair and smiled. Most of the magicians at the same time as her who took light magic focused on scattering and refraction, and went to the illusion or enchantment system. She is the only one who firmly believes in the lethality of light magic. Over the years, he has progressed step by step in the evocation department, until he has reached the level of a 17th level magician and a 9th level arcanist. However, she has always wanted to enhance the single point lethality of light magic, but she has never been able to get in. Archmage Philby's research just pointed out a direction for her. Her feeling was right. Light is tangible and intangible, reaching in an instant and reaching far and wide. Its powerful and pure lethality is, to a certain extent, unmatched by any faction in the evocation department. She wants to keep walking on this road and make her own way. Maybe she can follow this path and become a legend. Archmage Catherine, along with her disciples, her assistants, and her team, devoted themselves to this project with enthusiasm. Soon, as the research progressed, demand surged. We need gems. We need rubies. We need a lot of rubies. A lot of rubies of uniform, specified shapes. Fortunately, the Council has already researched the artificial manufacturing methods of various gems. Fortunately, the artificial manufacturing of gems was developed by the Plastic Energy Department. Internal solution, self-produced and sold. As a member of the Twilight School of the Plastic Energy Department, we can get artificial rubies at a relatively cheap price. It would be fatal if we all relied on natural gemstones. Actually, the most efficient research method is for high-level mages to rub rubies with their hands, and for middle and low-level mages to take the gems and test them. Archmage Catherine, as well as other high-level mages in the Twilight City, bought hundreds of artificial rubies from their own pockets and the pockets of the school. After burning them all within a week, they finally came to their senses. We are also in the plasticity department. Although we are not specialized in yang flame explosion, let alone meteor explosion, we have learned it. It is much more cost-effective for us to rub it ourselves than to spend money to buy it. Boom. Boom. Boom boom boom. 3 days later, the legendary group of the Magic Council had to contact the legendary Burbo and ask him to restrain the entire school of evocation. If you want to practice Sunfire Explosion and Meteor Explosion, Please follow the regulations of the council, queue up to apply, and practice in a special area. Don't just slap your head on the head of any mage and go to the wilderness to practice. Don't even go to the beach to practice. Especially in the direction of Hall Strait. The situation has been relatively relaxed recently, so don't create artificial tension. Baebo. I really want to get them all to Sky Dragon City, to the top of the world barrier. I can blow them up as much as I want, and blow them up as many times as I want. Unfortunately it can't. There is a world barrier, let alone Sky Dragon City. Even in Nevis, one can reach this barrier by climbing to the top of the Babel Tower and flying up, up, and up. However, it is not something that ordinary magicians can do to successfully fly out of the barrier, protect themselves, and then conduct experiments stably. The general magicians here refer specifically to all magicians below the legendary level. For legend, flying out of the world barrier to conduct experiments is an extremely cost-effective method. Therefore, a large number of legends would rather travel far away, visit different spaces, and establish bases in different spaces, rather than fly directly overhead. He had to scold the high-level mages of the evocation school, whether they were skilled workers rubbing rubies or those guys practicing sunfire explosion and meteor explosion on a temporary basis. Regarding their whaling, there are not enough rubies. Too expensive. We might as well practice by ourselves. Once you practice by yourself, you can have as many as you want. Burbo's face was dark, and he sprayed them back one by one. How much magic power do you have? How many sunbursts can you make in a day? How many meteor bursts? You know how to rub rubies with your hands, you know? It's not just that once you learn the spell, you can rub it stably. The control of the spell, the placement, and the delicacy of the mental power are all very important. Accidentally, when I cast the spell, my mental power didn't have time to retreat, and I was going to hurt myself. If I retreated too early, the wrapped powder would disperse in advance, and the rubies produced would be uneven. Some money should be earned by others. If you have this time, why not go back and design experiments carefully, think about how to save some rubies, and what shape of gems can be customized most efficiently. Roll. The high-ranking mages of Twilight City rolled away in despair. Only Archmage Catherine was still standing in front of Burbo, staring into his eyes, motionless. Your Excellency, Crown of the Sun, I have a few questions to ask. First, strong energy stimulates strong light. What will happen if a single high-energy particle hits a ruby? Burbo blinked and smiled. He spread his hands and shrugged helplessly. I haven't studied this issue, Philby, at least she didn't study it until I came back. As for whether she has studied it now, I don't know. Archmage Catherine's eyebrows moved, and she eagerly wanted to step forward. She moved her steps, but paused. Using a single high-energy electron to hit a ruby, this kind of control could be achieved by Archmage Philby, who specializes in the lightning system, but she couldn't. And if you can't do that, you have to resort to external forces. Excuse me, Lord Sun Crown, is it possible for me to go to Dragon Island and borrow an accelerator for experiments? I'm afraid this can't be done. The smile on Baebo's face deepened a little, and he felt a little regretful. He spread his hands and said, Sorry, Dragon Island Mage Tower is no longer accepting new applications recently. But what? However, after the second accelerator is built, if there are excess raw materials and research needs it, a third one may be built near Nevis. Your Excellency, if you want to build a new accelerator, please inform me. If the Parliament votes, although I am not a legend, I am willing to express my support. If Archmage Philby has any research that needs to be done in Nevis, I am willing to help her complete it unconditionally. Of course, I look forward to your support. The smile on Baebo's face became a little bigger. Look, isn't this supporter coming? Save one more, one by one, and one day, whatever Thunderhorn wants to do, the entire evocation department and the entire council will support it. Archmage Philby also had the idea of using a single high-energy electron to hit a ruby, but she didn't have time to do it. Currently, the accelerator's experimental plans are scheduled for 2 months. The Lord of Thunder also has experimental needs. Although she, her teacher, can rub high-energy particles with her hands to conduct experiments, she can't keep up with the accelerator no matter how hard she rubs them with her hands. Magic control is laborious, and the parameters may not be accurate. If you are distracted for a moment, the high-energy particles rubbed out by your hands will fly to nowhere. At this moment, she was watching Greet do the experiment. He carefully cut off a strip of skin from a demon frog that was about to reach the critical point of advancement, connected one end to the body, and put the other end under the microscope. Then, slowly turn the end of the accelerator and aim it at the magic frog. Adjust the parameters. 3, 2, 1, start. The accelerator rumbled. The high-speed electron flow rotates inside the spiral cavity, 1, 2, 3 times. Each time it passes a node, the speed increases with each revolution. Finally, the powerful high-speed particle flow collided with the demon frog and was absorbed into the body. Here we go. Greet shouted softly, her voice tight. The immobilized demon frog was restless, cooing, and struggling to escape. Gretel stared closely at the microscope, but his mental power spread out hard to cover the devil frog. This time I must succeed. The parameters of this experiment have been adjusted dozens of times. Every time, either the electron flow is too large, killing and injuring the devil frog, or the electron flow is too small, and there is no reaction at all. Up and down, back and forth, the devil frog's weight, energy, experimental electron flow parameters were calculated countless times. This time, it should be the most promising one. Under the microscope, more than one spot on the devil frog's chromosome strip began to slowly glow. Brighter and brighter, brighter and brighter, finally, it turned into pure bright gold. In an instant, the magic frog yelled "Gugwa" and sprayed out a water arrow. The moment before the water arrow sprayed out, Greet saw the obvious shining of golden light on the chromosome strips. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1677. It can be seen from observation that when extraordinary creatures launch extraordinary spells, the chromosomes will react. Greet brushed and wrote down his observations. Stop for a moment, turn around and look at the clock next to you, and record the moment when extraordinary changes occur. When it comes time to write detailed observation records, we need to extract from the images taken by tailing, the image of the magic frog firing water arrows at this moment, as well as the image of the chromosome changes in the microscope. By the way, tailing also needs to perform calculations on the chromosome image to mark out which chromosome point has undergone mutation, so as to conduct more in-depth research on this point. Senior sister? Senior sister? Ah! Archmage Philby was called twice and finally came to her senses. She responded with a hum to show that she heard it, and still stared closely at the microscope and the chromosomes spread out under the microscope. Gretel didn't even need to probe further to feel that her mental power was already spreading. Like a hairspring or flying catkins, try to be as light as possible and try not to disturb the object of observation. At the same time, he tightly wrapped the devil frog, especially the small strip of skin that was observed under the microscope. His face was serious, and his body leaned forward involuntarily, as if all his attention, even his spirit and will, were devoted to the seemingly tiny but extremely complex chromosomes. Make it spit again. Ah! Let it spit out water arrows again. Ah! Oh! Gretel pressed the button next to the magic frog's fixture. Button 1 is used to physically stimulate the devil frog by sticking out a sharp needle from the side and piercing the devil frog's body hard. Quack. The magic frog struggled and screamed at the top of its lungs, but did not spit out water arrows. Stimulate once, stimulate twice, stimulate 3 times. If the stimulation is ineffective, change the method. Button 2, chemically stimulates the magic frog. The method is to stick out a knife from the side, cut the skin of the devil frog, and drop a drop of concentrated hydrochloric acid on the leg meat. After stimulating 3 times but not getting satisfactory results, try another method. After repeating this 5 times, the magic frog finally spit out the water arrow again smoothly. Archmage Philby also stared at the chromosome for a long time, and then quietly exhaled. So that's it? What? How is it? Greet tried hard to stretch his head, almost drilling his head into the microscope, and opened his eyes to directly see the changes in the chromosomes, but he couldn't. Not to mention that the microscope is completely enclosed, the image it displays is actually an image restored after tailings calculations. Even if you really stick your head in, the naked eye's observation ability will not be able to see the finer parts. Don't look at it, the resolution of the microscope is not enough. Archmage Philby endured it, and then endured it, but finally couldn't hold it back anymore, and flew up the mage's hand and patted the little junior brother on the forehead, patting him. Gotta sit up straight and go back. You have to use your mental power to see, like me. Spread out your mental power and go deep into the chromosomes. With the help of a microscope, locate that special point, and then observe its changes. Gretel. Senior sister, what misunderstanding do you have about my mental level? My mental power is really not this strong or this delicate. The special training that the teacher arranged for me, so far, I have not even passed the first level. I still have an unknown distance before I can directly perceive electrons with my mental power. What are you looking at me for? If you know you're not good, then practice hard. The stronger your mental power and the more delicate your observation ability, the more research methods you can use, and the closer you can get to the reality of the world. But senior sister. No buts. No buts. Practice. Even if you practice, you can't practice it in a day or two, or in a month or two. Besides, Gretel always feels that relying on one's own hard training and efforts to enhance mental strength to improve research methods is not the right way. To use an ancient Chinese saying, a gentleman's nature is not different, he is good at things and fake things. There is no big difference between people, except that they are good at using tools. From an evolutionary perspective, the sign that humans have separated from apes and begun to evolve is the use of tools. But there is no use arguing with senior sister about this, or in other words, the only use is probably to fight. Greet was silent for a moment and asked cautiously. Sister, what did you see? I saw. Archmage Philby's expression darkened. After a moment of silence, she raised her finger, and a golden light spread out from her fingertips. Spiral, spiral, complicated and tight spiral. Gretel squinted his eyes slightly and saw clearly the spiral composed of thin golden light, which was clearly the image of chromosomes illuminated by a microscope. After the spiral appeared, it paused for a moment, and many parts above and below began to disperse. Only a little golden light in the middle began to grow, and continue to grow. It has grown to its limit and has become a thin cloud, and in the cloud, a golden light shines. Huh! Greet stood up suddenly. That golden light, those dots of golden light, if you connect them all. Although it still looks very blurry and unclear, a three-dimensional figure has been roughly outlined. A three-dimensional figure that is somewhat similar to the spell configuration. Our research on magic patterns first started by dismantling and analyzing the patterns on the monsters. Senior sister Philby's voice sounded faintly in my ears. Those patterns with magical power, those patterns that will light up when the spell is activated and have strong magical reactions, those patterns that can circulate magic after being cut. Those patterns imprinted on the skin, bones, and horns of monsters. Greed nodded slightly and followed the senior sister's thoughts. Those patterns, we call them magic patterns initially, we copied them, drew them on scrolls and utensils, and activated their power. Gradually, we began to dismantle them, calculate them, and purify more concise and powerful spell configurations. However, we still don't understand why those monsters have magic patterns and why they can trigger the power in their blood. No. And now, they seem to have found the answer. Chromosomes, the atoms in chromosomes, the atoms arranged in chromosomes in various complex structures, they form small super-energy configurations. And these super-energy configurations, which are buried in cells one by one, when they absorb powerful energy and enter the transition state, they will naturally resonate with the external energy, attract energy, and release energy. So this is the extraordinary mystery. Archmage Philby took a gentle breath. This is the secret of extraordinary creatures, passed down from generation to generation, flowing in the blood. We need more evidence, Greed said solemnly. Archmage Philby lowered her eyes slightly and nodded vigorously. Yes. More evidence. More research, more evidence. We need more extraordinary creatures, to join in the research one by one, and to decipher them one by one. When they activate magic, what extraordinary configurations on their bodies trigger the power? She quickly turned her head and stared at Gretel, her eyes bright and her cheeks burning with excitement. Just as Gretel's heart skipped a beat, her senior sister grabbed her shoulders. Practice. Practice hard. Practice as soon as possible to the level where you can observe chromosomes and observe the internal structure of chromosomes. I will personally supervise you. No. Senior sister. Gretel screamed. The two of them were noisy and quarreling, but in the end, Greed had the courage to send the results and topic selection to the teacher and his wife. After hearing the cause and effect, Princess Norrell saw Gretel crying and looking like he was about to run away at any moment, and she burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha, Philby, don't push too hard. Look at little Greed's hair. It's messed up like this. 2 hours of practice every day is quite a lot. 3 hours is very strict. Now, you have to give him some time to breathe. Little Greed, don't complain too much, your senior sister is doing this for your own good. But so much training, so much practice, ha 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 ha. Little Greed is still a child. According to the age of the elf, he is still a cub. Even according to the age of a half-elf, he is barely an adult and has begun to assume responsibilities. Children of this age should be coaxed a lot and should not be too harsh on them. This discovery is very important. On the other side, the Lord of Thunder closed his eyes slightly, holding a magic frog that was too scared to move in his hand, and the electric light floated gently around him. If this discovery continues, we may be able to let magic flow naturally in the blood of magicians. Even if controlling magic requires a lot of knowledge, we can at least create a large number of magic warriors. Well, teacher, would you like to participate in our research? Archmage Philby asked excitedly. The Lord of Thunder pondered for a moment, then shook his head. I'm still too busy recently. Well, the workload of this research is extremely huge. You can't rely on just you, or train little Gretel and expect the two of you to do the work. Go improve the tools. To improve the resolution of the microscope. If the microelectron microscope is over, create and transform other observation equipment. It must be able to be used by mid-level mages, and preferably, low-level mages and apprentices can use it. Greed breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the teacher gratefully. That's right. There are so many magical creatures, so many different extraordinary abilities, and so many chromosomes. Of course, it requires a lot of manpower and a large number of manpower to pounce on. Relying on me alone, what's the use of relying on me alone? Don't let up. Turning around, the Lord of Thunder's spearhead quickly aimed at him again. The mental power of a magician is still the most important. During the advancement process, or even during ordinary meditation, you simply accumulate strength and ignite a large number of spell configurations in your chromosomes. This accumulation efficiency is obviously completely ineffective. The same. Gretel? Why are you coming at me again? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1678. 10,000 rewards plus 3 updates. Longdeo has sent another paper. Oh, there are quite a lot of papers coming over from Long Island recently. Such conversations were floating in the legendary meeting at the Tower of Babel. To be honest, ever since greed took root in Dragon Island, the papers handed over from Dragon Island have made his presence felt in Nevis. If it takes a high-level mage 2 or even 3 years of research to publish a significant paper, then on Dragon Island, a high-level mage of the same level can publish one in half a year. As time passed, the legendary mages in Nevis became calmer. Just come, and review it step by step, deliver each journal step by step, and issue rewards step by step. But this paper is different. Why is it different? This time it was sent by Phil By, and Kristen wrote the recommendation herself. By the way, it also specifically stated that it needs to be evaluated by the Legend Conference to see if it can be published publicly. Oh? Send me a copy. Send me a copy too. The spirits of the legends surged instantly. The presence of this recommendation indicates that this discovery is of great importance. Well, the paper that was kept secret last time caused a big explosion in the glorious Holy See. During the observation of extraordinary points, the existence of suspected magic configurations was discovered. Well, this discovery is very interesting, and it's very meaningful. If this research is implemented, the Parliament will be able to control the source of the extraordinary power of the bloodline. It can add it to whomever it wants, and it may be able to take away the bloodline power from whomever it wants. For example, now, the Magic Council hangs up a sign, adds the ability of reinforced iron bone to the user's bloodline. It can be activated by advancing to the 3rd level and can be inherited. Believe it or not, a group of soldiers rushed up with gold coins and blocked the White Tower Hall, the Parliament's external office. Believe it or not, even the God of War Temple has to secretly contact the Magic Council to discuss a bulk order. Believe it or not, some young nobles who have just stepped into the aristocratic circle and want a stable inheritance of their family dare to give half of their family's heritage for a bloodline transformation? What if the added ability is a higher level? For example, Freeze Ray activates at the apprentice level, Ice Dagger activates at the level 1, Ice Ray activates at the night level, Ice Storm activates at the night level, Ice Spell activates at the sky level night level activation. Such a set of abilities, buried in the blood, can be activated as long as it is trained to a strong enough level. Please, all the Duke families in the entire kingdom will come to cry for help holding gold coins, land, and family treasures in their hands. Adding this set of bloodline abilities is a guarantee that a family will prosper forever, and every generation will be dominated by strong men, or worst of all, every generation will produce extraordinary ones. If you brag a little louder, you can even say that your family has the blood of God. Wait a minute, haven't we already done research on adding bloodline power? Adding specific points to chromosomes or something? Oh, that one can't be used yet. This research direction has attracted more attention from the transformation type Jade Crown Lord Ripley, and he is now popularizing it to other legends with ease. The added ones are mainly Dragon Clan chromosomes. According to our agreement with the Dragon Clan, this kind of addition can only be used for research and cannot be used for other purposes, and it is not allowed to flow out of Dragon Island. The so-called other aspects include commercial use, cultivating power for oneself, and exchange with other powers. In short, it is not allowed. The Nature Order has been doing research in this area, and the current tentative conclusion is that except for the good adaptability of dragon chromosomes, there will always be various problems when the chromosomes of other organisms are inserted into heterogeneous organisms at interception points. I understand, so chromosomes other than dragons cannot be inserted randomly for the time being. And if this research the existence of spell configurations was found in chromosomes goes further, specific spell configurations can be intercepted. Taking a step back, magicians can also try to burn specific spell configurations into their own chromosomes during meditation. Get your microscope ready. Who in my laboratory can make microscopy samples? Let him come here. Demon frogs. Demonic frogs that can release water arrows. They live in large groups and can advance to level 5 Demon Frog King. 10 of them first. Various orders are passed on the top of Igor Peak. Legend has it that there are high-level, mid-level, and low-level mages below, running around everywhere. However, after some research, almost all the legends who stayed in Nevis frowned. This research, the threshold is very high. The requirements for mental strength can be said to be very high. There is no problem with the legend, but under the legend. Even a half-step legendary high-level mage, not everyone has such delicate mental power that can penetrate deep into the chromosomes. In Nevis, there are a limited number of magicians who can enter this field. This is not my direction. Neither is my direction. Changing the direction of my studies will not help me. Instead, it will slow down my progress. The legendary mages and half-step legends all express their gratitude. Forget it, everyone's time is limited. To be a half-step legend, you must strive to become a legend within your limited lifespan. As for the legendary mage, there are endless topics to study, so it's better not to turn rashly. Only Archmage Philby is still researching tirelessly. This discovery, if you want to say it is significant, is absolutely significant. It can almost be said to reveal the origin of the magic. But to say it works, well, it could be as short as 10 or 8 years, or as long as several decades, it would be useless. In other words, it cannot be promoted and entered into a comprehensive application stage. At least, the application cost is very, very high, and it can only be used as a small-scale experiment. But Archmage Philby still attaches great importance to this research. There is no other, theoretical research, applied research, specific application. These three levels have an increasing impact on the world and are becoming less and less difficult, but the feedback from the world is getting less and less. Theoretical research is a pioneer, a leader, a person from a high position, who blazes a trail for the entire world. Therefore, the world's feedback is the most abundant and concentrated. Magicians who are really capable of doing theoretical research will use a series of flash spells or use magic like lightning jump on the way to advance. Applied research is at a disadvantage because it is waiting for theoretical research to find its way before implementing it. But at any rate, there are still some difficulties that need to be overcome, and there are still some problems that require our own research and innovation. Therefore, there will be some feedback from the world's will, but not too much. A magician working in this direction basically rides a phantom pony or a high-level phantom pony on the way to advancement. As for the magician who performs specific applications, cough, cough. Basically, others have tried out the methods and stipulated the processes. They only need to follow the established processes, work diligently, and do it without making any mistakes. Does it have a strong influence on the world? Very strong. This kind of renovation is given to whose family it is given first and to whom it is given later. The power rent-seeking in this process is very scary. In order to jump in front of the queue, I dare to give thousands or tens of thousands of gold coins to people or families who want to be transformed. Of course, those who do the actual operation must also give gifts. Otherwise, who knows whether the operator's work procedures are standard or whether he may accidentally reduce the ability that should be given. But I'm sorry, if this kind of operation is standardized and finalized, then the magician responsible for the execution will only get little feedback. Only by grinding for years and months, and understanding the rules and the operation of magic during the grinding process, can it be possible to slowly rise to the next level by relying on the growth of mental power and the accumulation of magical power. The speed of advancement is about the same as someone else riding a phantom pony and you are walking behind step by step. As for getting paid to do this job? Are you kidding? Who becomes a magician just for the money? Besides, even if you go just for money, everyone in this world knows that the higher the level, the stronger the power. As a magician, or any powerful person, increases in level, money, and status are at his fingertips. If the level is low and cannot be upgraded, it is considered that the potential has been exhausted. Even if you have a large amount of money, you cannot keep it. Sooner or later, if it is not sent out through this channel, it will be sent out through that channel. So Archmage Philby did not hesitate and plunged into research. The device that Gretel asked the legends to invent before to bring the images of the meditation world into reality has played a big role this time. Archmage Philby stared at the microscope, spread out her mental power, and held the interface of the device with one hand. Inside the gold box, complex magic lines worked hard to transmit the content perceived by her mental power to the tower spirit, who then recorded it. Level 1 Demon Frog No 001, launch water arrows, observe for the first time, the 17th point of the third chromosome. Level 1 Demon Frog No 001, launch water arrows, observe for the second time. The third observation. Level 1 Demon Frog No 002. Level 2 Demon Frog No 011, activated water arrow technique, observed for the first time. Level 2 Demon Frog No 011, activated poison mist technique, observed for the first time. Level 5 Demon Frog King number 101, activated tongue stabbing technique, observed for the first time. Level 3 Ice Lizard No 001, activated the freezing ray, observed for the first time. Each observation object must be observed at least 3 times, and each type of observation object must be observed at least 10 times. If this observation is not accurate, the angle is a little inappropriate, and accurate data is not recorded, then more observations will be needed. In case this observation object has exhausted the number of spell casts today, then I'm sorry, grab another one and try again to ensure the accuracy of the observation results. I feel, if you want to produce results, you need too much research work. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1679. Archmage Philby closed her eyes and concentrated slightly, allowing her spirit to relax a little. Using her mental power to such a subtle level to deeply observe the structure of a certain chromosome point, even if she is a half-step legend, the pressure is very high. After observing it for 20 times in a row, I felt a slight throbbing pain in my temple. Alas, actually what that little guy Gretel said is quite reasonable. If the precision of the microscope could be further improved, she would no longer have to diligently use her mental energy to observe. At that time, her disciples, students, assistants, and other magicians in the laboratory can all participate in observation and recording. As for herself, she only needs to summarize, analyze, and integrate their research results. In the final analysis, when research has reached her level, what is seen is not the most important, but what can be analyzed and confirmed in the observed content is the value of a high-level researcher. Help me pick up Archmage Tenasi Langer of the Transformation Department. Archmage Philby pressed the call button of the Tower Spirit and asked him to transfer the person in charge of the Transformation Department, the half-legendary alchemist. After thinking for a while, he continued to nod. Then the curse system, the protection system, the illusion system, and the necromantic system. They have been involved in the development of the microscope before. Contact one by one, invite one by one. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon that day, all the invited magicians gathered in Archmage Philby's research room with their right-hand assistants. The one from Black Crow Marsh brought a skeleton. Archmage Philby first invited them to see his research results, and then set up a new batch of magic frogs to let them experience them one by one. As expected. One by one, half-step legends and high-level mages, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets when faced with unprecedented discoveries. Some are visible and some are invisible. Those whose mental power is delicate enough to be scanned, such as the half-step legend of the transformation department, whose hands are so trembling that people think he has chicken claw madness. The mental power is not refined enough, so those who can only read the second-hand records observed by Archmage Philby will either beat their chests or beat their own heads, or they will reluctantly stare at the microscope in front of them. Archmage Philby watched with great pleasure as they performed their facial expressions one by one. If you can observe it with your mental power, you can't wait to get into a microscope. Those who can't observe it mentally can't wait to get into the light screen displayed by the Mage Tower Spirit. It's good to have feelings and needs, and if you have feelings and needs, you will find ways to make better observation equipment. Archmage Philby waited patiently for the last guest to finish. Pause for a moment, wait for their excitement to calm down, and make a sincere request. Just using mental scanning, there are too few people who can do this research, and the progress of the research is too slow. I thought, if there could be a more precise microscope or other observation equipment. No problem. Archmage Tenasai Langer of the Change Department was the first to pat his chest. Chromosomes, the magic models in chromosomes. After thoroughly researching this project, using various animal and plant materials to make magic props, you can first conduct chromosome testing to find out the magic models hidden in the materials, and then guide the power in a targeted manner. Whether it's material processing or magic prop production, it's all about getting twice the result with half the effort. In addition, the other direction of the change system, changing all things, can also be carried out based on the study of chromosomes and spell models. It is conceivable that the spell casting will be smoother and the consumption will be reduced a lot. Leave it to me. I'll be the first to join. I'll go back and sort out the work at hand, hand over what I can to the following, and then start leading the research and development of this project. I'm participating too. Archmage Landro of the Conjuration Department also raised his voice. His mental power is not as delicate as that of the one from the Change Department. Because of this, he wants to personally participate in this project. If the magic pattern is the surface layer of the spell structure, it is the shadow cast by the spell structure on the body of the extraordinary creature, which changes according to the changes in the body structure of the extraordinary creature. Then, the golden light that lights up in the chromosomes, and the shapes outlined by those golden lights, may be the underlying prototype of the spell. You must participate in research on this kind of project. How helpful it is to the conjuration system. I'm participating too. I'm participating too. Magicians from several other schools joined in. Discuss manpower, funding, research ideas, research locations. The discussion lasted until late at night. Everyone drank coffee, stuffed sandwiches, and finished writing plans, applications, and various documents before reluctantly leaving. Archmage Philby stood by the door, watching them enter the elevator, and smiled at the closed elevator door. Very good, there is strength in numbers. I hope that in another half a year or another year, a new version of a microelectron microscope with high enough resolution will be available. It should be possible, right? After all, the teacher is by your side. If you encounter problems, you can always ask him for advice. Several other archmages and half-step legends will also ask the legends of their respective schools for advice when they encounter problems in research and development. I don't believe you legends are not curious about this subject. Even if the research direction is different and you won't be directly involved, you will still be able to give pointers to your disciples, right? Of course, R/U0026D belongs to R/U0026D, and daily research must still be carried out as usual. Archmage Philby patiently studied the monsters one by one, one by one. It's okay to be small, like a magic frog, you can just use a restraint spell to fix it. Large ones, such as a tin pig weighing nearly a ton, or an alligator with a body length of 2 meters, are not only a matter of fixed spells, but also the accelerator microelectron microscope linkage device, which requires additional modifications. Alas, there are so many spell configurations, it's a pity that they can't be transplanted into the human body. Then again, it would be great if I could see the spell configurations in my body. Wait, it seems okay? Archmage Philby raised her left hand, pulled up her sleeve a little, and glanced from her forearm to her fingertips, and then from her fingertips to her forearm. Her delicate, white, flawless skin looked almost translucent under the strong light from the rooftop. If you cut a knife, if you cut out a uniform and complete thin strip like those of experimental animals. It's theoretically possible. These days, she has become very comfortable cutting up experimental animals. If you are afraid that your arm will move due to pain, you only need to cast analgesic magic in advance. Little Greet's local delay of pain, which he calls local anesthesia magic, is very useful. As for operating accelerators and microscopes, this is no longer a problem. Even if one hand is occupied, there are still dozens of mage hands, which can be triggered by thoughts. Just do what comes to mind. Archmage Philby first called up the results of her own chromosome scan and stared at them for a long time. One by one, up and down, until all 23 pairs of chromosomes and thousands of light and dark points are memorized. Then, he closed the door to the research room, told everyone not to disturb him, and did it himself. Set up a target next to the wall for spells to hit. Set up enough defensive magic, absorb magic, and eliminate magic. Clean. Shave off your hair. Disinfect. Thanks to little Gretel, she has repeatedly popularized surgical disinfection methods. Even if she is just listening, she is already familiar with it. Then, holding a thin sharp blade in hand, he carefully cut a strip of skin 1 mm wide and 1 decimeter long. Bring your left arm close to the microscope and put the active epidermis that is still connected to the body under the lens of the microscope. Then, concentrate slightly and adjust your breathing. He raised his fingertips and pointed at the target in the corner. With the help of the microscope, his mental power locked on the chromosomes in the cells. Freeze ray. The chromosomes lit up slightly. Very good, there is a response, which means that the cells are paying energy during the casting process. Let me see, the third chromosome, point number 57, the fifth chromosome, point number 81, the 11th chromosome, point number 18, all have traces of flashing. Come again. Look carefully again. Strangely, there are no traces of spell configuration among the chromosome points. Is it because my mental observation is not delicate enough? Or are humans different from World of Warcraft? Our spellcasting abilities are learned rather than buried in our bloodline? Have to continue to observe. Freeze ray. Freeze ray. Lightning shock. Strangely, the chromosomes with flashing traces are still at the same points, and, just like before, no traces of spell configuration were observed. Lightning shock. Phantom sound technique. Mage's hand. Magic trick. Hey, I can't see clearly, I know, it's because the skin has been away from the body for too long, and the related cells cannot get nutrients and start to die. Just die, there are so many things like skin. Archmage Philby threw a cure minor injuries on the wound. A flash of white light flashed, and the arm was as delicate and smooth as ever. She calmed down, disinfected again, cut again, observed again. Senior sister has been very busy recently. Greed walked back and forth outside the laboratory. Regarding recent research, he has accumulated a lot of ideas, which he needs to discuss with his senior sister. Regarding the recent special mental training, he also has more than one question to ask. Why don't you come out, senior sister? Is it convenient for you, senior sister? I'm coming in. Greed pushed open the door and entered. At first glance, I saw senior sister Philby holding a sharp blade similar to a scalpel, and without changing her expression or heartbeat, she made a cut on the back of her hand. Sister, please don't do this. If there are any problems, let's analyze and study them together. If not, you can still ask for leave from the teacher, ask the elders of Sky Dragon City for advice, and you can all work together. Don't just start hurting yourself when you encounter a problem and can't handle it. This article about cats was recommended by Ma Boyong. The cat is so excited. Thanks to Etta Peng for the 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Jiolan 2020. Chapter 1680. Seeing the bloody wound on senior sister's arm, Greed was stunned and almost suspected that senior sister Philby had a mental problem. The research pressure was so great that you suffered a nervous breakdown? Or did something go wrong in the process of attacking the legend? Or, during meditation, due to the impact of electromagnetic waves on the brain, something is wrong with the brain waves, affecting the personality and thinking? Greed rushed over reflexively, raised his hand and pressed a healing spell. Archmage Philby smiled slightly, raised her right hand, and a piece of lightning floated in the palm of her hand. The blue and white lightning formed a net, blocking the healing technique. Don't disturb my research. Stand aside and be quiet. As he spoke, the thunder net in his palm had erected and expanded, moving up and down in all directions, blocking Gretel. Approaching step by step, forcing Gretel into the corner of the room, with his back against the wall, unable to move at all. I'll talk to you after I finish this round of research. Gretel smiled bitterly. However, senior sister's thunder net seemed meager, but it exuded a violent aura that could destroy heaven and earth. He really didn't dare to rush forward. If he rushes over and lies directly on the thunder net, even if the senior sister retracts her strength quickly, he will be scorched, right? Electric shock injuries are particularly difficult to treat. The mouth is small and the belly is big, and it changes frequently. It's the same thing after admission, but it changes again after a few days. The doctor who has his turn to treat electric shock injuries is always on tenterhooks every day. From the outside, there is only a slight wound, but inside, especially the muscles and nerves attached to the bones, they are all rotten. He could only lean back, and lean back again. Place your heels against the wall, your back against the wall, and the back of your head against the wall. Keep your whole body as straight as possible. Well, no matter how close you are, there will still be a gap between the human body and the wall. After all, the natural curvature of the spine is there. If the shoulders and the back of the head are pressed against the wall, there will be a gap in the neck. By the way, what is senior sister doing? Damn it, the distance is too far, and his mental power is not that delicate, so he can't see clearly at all. Archmage Philby raised a faint smile, turned her head, and was immersed in research again. After observing these days, she has basically determined one fact. When a magician, especially a magician like her with no special abilities in her bloodline, releases a spell, the points in her chromosomes will not form a specific spell configuration like Warcraft does. However, during the process of releasing the spell, certain chromosome points will indeed light up with golden light. When a low-level spell is released, only a few chromosome points light up, but when a high-level spell is released, more points light up. Archmage Philby spent almost half a month cutting countless strips of skin off her arms, and finally locked in these crucial points. By the time Greet broke in, she had completed the preliminary research and was analyzing in depth whether there was a spell configuration among the most basic points, and what the spell configuration was like. Relatively speaking, the repeated torment of cutting a strip of skin on your hand, then healing it, cutting it again, and healing it again, is nothing at all, not even painful. I think I've learned some tricks. Greet stood against the wall for half an hour. The thunder net in front of him was closed, and the sky was clear and clear. Before he could rush over, Philby pointed with her backhand, and a cure minor wounds fell on her arm. Magicians believe that any magical spell is ultimately a spell. As long as it is a spell, there are related spell models that can activate the power between heaven and earth. Although Archmage Philby does not specialize in medical treatment, she can still do a few simple healing spells and memorize spell configurations. During this period of time, she was throwing healing spells at herself, which was not troublesome at all. "Sister, have you noticed?" Gretel rushed over. Archmage Philby smoothed down her forearm sleeves, stretched, and tossed her hair comfortably. "I probably have an idea. Well, I have to wait and verify it tomorrow to see if it can be successful." She waved the door open and took Gretel out. Outside the laboratory, the transformation magicians rushed in impatiently, almost brushing her shoulders and rushing towards the accelerator. Every day, each person, or each group, only has 1 hour, or 2 hours. Their experimental plan has been accurate to the minute, or even to 10 seconds. If you are a little late and the connection is slow, today's plan will not be completed. Archmage Philby walked out of the research room easily, but no matter how Gretel asked, she smiled and shook her head, refusing to tell him what she had researched. It wasn't until 2 o'clock in the morning that day, when everything was silent in the Mage Tower, the magicians were sleeping, meditating, and the researchers who had the longest time to sleep had already rested. Then she walked lightly into the room where the particle accelerator was. At the exit of the accelerator, I sat down in a small room specially designed to receive bombardment from particle streams. Meditate, concentrate, and spread your spiritual power to all parts of your body, becoming more differentiated and more delicate. If possible, it would be best to divide it into thousands of threads, go deep into it, and control all the cells in the body. Even if it doesn't work, we must be able to establish resonance between the body and consciousness and effectively guide external forces. Accelerator, turn on. With a bang, the high-energy electrons in the accelerator continued to rotate along the spiral acceleration chamber until they hit Archmage Philby. Archmage Philby quietly felt the shower of particle rain, silently guiding the powerful force into her body, being absorbed by every cell and every chromosome in the cell. The third chromosome, point 57. After repeated observation and testing, this point must light up every time the spell is cast. Archmage Philby tried more than 100 times before she found what seemed to be a spell configuration at this lit spot. Next, through a lot of meditation and a lot of energy injection, Archmage Philby initially confirmed that this spell configuration can help enhance the magician's mental power. Therefore, during the process of bathing in the particle flow, Archmage Philby used her mental power to build this configuration and tried to make it resonate with her body. On her first try, she was not very aggressive and just raised her left little finger, the least flexible and least used finger among the 10 fingers of her hands. Then, he used the pulp of his little finger to resist the outlet of the particle flow jet, allowing all the high-energy particle flow to hit the finger pulp. Archmage Philby slowly closed her eyes, meditating on the newly found configurations, letting them light up, light up, light up in designated areas and designated points. 4 hours flew by. There were voices outside the laboratory. Archmage Philby turned off the accelerator, raised the little finger of her left hand to her eyes, and watched carefully. It seems much stronger. In the previous process of bathing in the particle flow, a large number of high-energy particles entered the body, but 80%, or even more than 90%, were quickly lost. After all, the human body is not a magic material, let alone magic equipment. Most of the atoms that absorb a large amount of energy and enter the transition state will dissipate quickly, ranging from a few seconds to a day or two. A magician must meditate day after day and activate the elements day after day in order to refine himself and give himself powerful energy so that he can take the advanced step. Energy dissipation, compared to simply meditating, building configurations, and using relevant configurations to restrain energy, the energy dissipated is much less. Archmage Philby suddenly stood up, ran out of the research room where the particle accelerator was, and ran towards her own exclusive laboratory. Rushing into the laboratory, each instrument was turned on to test the results of the energy absorbed by this meditation. 1%. Compared with normal meditation, the efficiency is increased by 1%. In other words, compared with normal meditation, the speed of energy dissipation is significantly and observably reduced. She raised her head, her eyes shining brightly. Spell configuration can effectively restrain energy and allow more energy to be retained in the world of meditation. This has been confirmed by generations of magicians. And this newly discovered spell configuration can restrain energy in the body, allowing the magician to accelerate the enhancement of his body's strength and quickly transform into a legendary form. This is just a point, and the efficiency has increased by 1%. If all the spell configurations of all extraordinary points are deciphered, and all are used in meditation to restrain the absorbed energy. So, how much can she increase the speed at which her body can transform into legendary and elemental transformations if she absorbs enough energy? 10%? 20%? Even 50%? Can this meditation method be generalized? Can it be extended to every half-step legend and every high-level mage? Can even basic meditation methods be added and promoted to every magician? If it can really be promoted, how much more will the entire Magic Council's strength increase? This is not urgent. At the meeting that night, the Lord of Thunder listened to the disciples' report, smiled slightly, and shook his head. These research results are only based on your own, and they have not even completed the exploration of yourself. Don't worry, take it step by step. The spell configuration of each point must be confirmed again and again, and the function of each spell configuration must be confirmed again and again. Compared with the progress of the entire Magic Council, what the Lord of Thunder is more concerned about is that his disciples can enter the legend stably and safely. Taking a step back, even if a new meditation method is to be implemented, if there is a new legend as the representative of the new meditation method and the first beneficiary, this new meditation method will seem more credible, right? Archmage Philby smiled and nodded. The Lord of Thunder turned his head with satisfaction and looked at Gretel. What about you? How has your training progressed recently? How refined has your mental power become? Help dash. Greet's face instantly turned pale. Oops, I've been fishing for a few days recently and I'm going to be hung up by the teacher and whipped. Wife, help me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1681. The sophistication of mental power must be developed slowly. The exercise arranged by the Lord of Thunder for Gretel was to first use the filter in the laboratory to recycle waste. A piece of discarded filter screen, each one carrying various residues filtered by the change system. There were ore powders, animal bone powders, plant powders, and various raw materials that Gretel couldn't figure out at all. Residues of various shapes, large and small, thick and thin, accumulate on the discarded filter screen. Gretel needs to use his mental power to pick apart the residue one by one, and then let the mental power filaments pass through the grid of the filter, and pull the finest particles that can pass through the filter one by one. From coarse to fine, from 80 mesh to 100 mesh, from gauze filter to silk filter, and then to paper filter. After the paper filter, the existing filter can't keep up, but Greet also has his own way. He started looking at bacteria. Just take out a petri dish, shake it around a few times, and let it sit for a few days, and it will be full of bacteria. Gretel spread out his mental energy, patiently distinguishing different bacteria, and picked them out one by one. This is Escherichia coli, this is Vibrio cholerae, this is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, this is Staphylococcus aureus, this. Pick one out, use mental power to wrap it, move it, and put it into a clean petri dish next to it. Pick out the next one, wrap it with mental power, move it, and put it into the second clean petri dish with a note on it. So carefully, picking one by one. After a round of picking, all the petri dishes are placed separately to cultivate bacteria under suitable conditions. Ah, there are miscellaneous bacteria here, the observation of mental power is not detailed enough. I looked at the wrong thing and picked the wrong things. Gretel concentrated his mind and picked round after round. On the first day of training, I could only pick out a few hundred bacteria in an hour, and I felt dizzy and exhausted. On the 10th day, 3,000 to 4,000 bacteria could be picked out in 1 hour. After a few days of cultivation, small mushroom-like colonies can be formed in the petri dish. On the 20th day, he was able to use his mental power as much as possible. After locking on a bacterium, he used the resonance of similar bacteria and the extremely clear description of the bacteria to pick up a large number of similar bacteria at once. The Lord of Thunder had originally prepared a large number of follow-up mental training courses for him, almost including all the various training methods he had used along the way. Unexpectedly, after completing the initial course, the young apprentice said that he had other training methods and refused to come to him. The Lord of Thunder entered Greet's laboratory and walked around. When he saw the ultra-clean experimental table full of various glass round boxes with colorful bacterial colonies inside, he could only laugh. Okay, this method is suitable for you. Of course it fits. It couldn't be more suitable. During a training session, the mental power is used to pick out bacteria. Whether the selection is accurate or not depends on whether there are any stray bacteria in the culture results of the petri dish. Whether the picking speed is fast enough, whether all the bacteria in the original dish are picked out, just look at the original dish to see if there are colorful miscellaneous bacteria. But as a result of your training like this, your mental power may be delicate, but it is not broad enough or strong enough. After seeing the results of Gretel's training, the Lord of Thunder still had to say. To put it simply, it's okay to work in the laboratory, but not on the battlefield. If the intensity and explosive power are not enough, you will suffer a lot in a confrontation. When this round of exercise is over, you can come to me again and I will give you a new plan. Greet nodded with a grimace. Actually, he had other ideas. Isn't it just strength? Isn't it just explosive power? Looking back, he looked for those sick monsters, especially the sick high-level monsters. Directly use your mental power to observe the germs on their bodies, and then use your mental power to remove these germs at once. Work as fast as you can. You can even remove the germs from their bodies while they unfold their momentum and deploy their magical defenses. The intensity is enough to penetrate the defense and then work. The explosive power is enough to complete the work before they have time to resist or even react. So don't rush to advance during this period, polish your mental power. Level 17 is the candidate for Legend. To achieve Legend, in the process of elementalization of the body, the delicate and rounded mental power is particularly important. The Lord of Thunder taught his disciples earnestly. Archmage Philby also nodded beside her. Yes, little Greet, the teacher is right. Speaking of which, my ability to reach level 19 so quickly is completely inseparable from the control of my mental power. Of course, understanding the world and understanding the body are also very important. The most critical progress for her to reach where she is now is 2 points. The first point is the bioelectricity in the body. After Greet broke through this knowledge point, her fear of the body's elementalization disappeared too much, and she could follow the body's own bioelectricity to elementalize under the microscope. The second point is that she used her mental power to observe the existence of electrons and electron flow. After observing the electrons, the mental power goes deep into the cells to observe and guide the changes in details, which makes it much more convenient. Teacher, senior sister, I understand. Greet nodded obediently, complaining in his heart. Don't rush to advance. Is it okay if I don't want to be in a hurry about advancing? Now that the research results have arrived and the feedback from the worlds will has arrived, it will be natural for us to advance. By the way, how far has your recent research progressed? What are the difficulties? Gretel took a deep breath. The recent progress in the research on dragon fertility issues is still taking time. The main reason is that after a round of experiments, the dragon eggs need to hatch slowly to determine whether the experimental plan is correct and whether the next step can be carried out. And dragon egg hatching, even the smallest and fastest hatching white dragon egg, takes more than a year from laying to hatching. We have been looking for some specific points recently. After strengthening them, we can make the young dragon strong enough and increase the success rate of its awakening. He gathered his thoughts with a grimace and answered slowly. But the dragons have too many chromosomes. Even for a young dragon, there are too many extraordinary points. With so many points, it is too difficult to test and confirm one by one. We don't even have enough experimental subjects. Even a young dragon has hundreds of extraordinary points at birth. Which one, or which ones, can affect its body and make its physical body strong enough? And which one, or which ones, can affect its mental power and make it strong enough to carry the dragon clan's inheritance? What extraordinary points are there that can make its brain develop perfectly enough to not burn out its brain in the process of accepting the inheritance of the dragon clan? If only one extraordinary point is decisive, then the experimental group and the control group combined will need at least 100 dragon eggs. If there are several, a combination of more than a dozen points is decisive, then Thinking of this, Greet had a headache and dizziness. He pulled out his hair in handfuls and wanted to hit his head against the wall. The Lord of Thunder listened carefully to his troubles and smiled without saying a word, but Archmage Philby smiled and nodded. I didn't have a clue about this issue before, but I have some ideas recently. Huh? This is the result of my recent research. Archmage Philby raised her left forearm and flashed it in front of her junior brother. Those extraordinary points in the human body, those that light up every time you cast a spell, I suspect, are related to the basic mental power. Little Gretel, you can also let those dragons cast spells to test the ones that light up every time. Point. Ugh, I'll go find them and give it a try. It's best to be a young dragon or a baby dragon. It has fewer extraordinary points and it's easier to draw conclusions. They have to run away from family to family again. Once again, we have to convince each family. By the way, senior sister, we're working hard on the progress in your laboratory. Sequencing and identifying the different extraordinary points to confirm whether this point of this dragon clan is the same as the same point of that dragon clan. Damn it! Is you? Archmage Philby's bright face dimmed instantly. Just like Greet said, the dragons have too many chromosomes, they are too complicated, and the workload is too great. In her laboratory, there is already a group of people working on the sequencing project day and night. However, this small amount of manpower is simply a drop in the bucket compared to the huge chromosome sequence of the dragon clan. Gretel also made so many dragons. So many chromosomes. Even if they select a batch first, such as the points injected into the dragon vein warriors, and measure them one by one. They haven't finished measuring them yet. Look, is there any way to increase the speed of measurement? Or maybe we add more manpower. Where can I add more people? Archmage Philby also shut up. Where is the manpower? In the Mage Tower, all available manpower has been mobilized as much as possible. Not to mention working 24 hours a day, everyone is working at least 12 hours a day. I spent all my time meditating and sleeping on it, and even took a bath instead of using the cleansing technique. How about, send some samples back and let people in Nevis do it? Greet asked tentatively. Archmage Philby thought for a while and shook her head. I'm afraid not. We have an agreement with the Dragon Clan, and the samples cannot leave Dragon Island. Besides, the mages in Nevis are not experienced, and too many raw materials are wasted. What should we do? Let me think about it. Are there any other ways to improve efficiency? Gretel thought hard. Archmage Philby also thought hard. The two of them haven't found a plan yet, but a new opportunity to break the situation has already arrived at their door. Teacher! Teacher! Anavia's long braids were beating and she rushed in excitedly. Teacher, look what we have done. Thanks to @book friend 20230704213724529 for the reward of 500 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1682. Anivia is Gretel's disciple, but not from the Thunder Lord's lineage. There is no way, she is a natural priest, not a magician. Thunderhorn is willing to treat Greet differently, but it is impossible to treat her as one of their own. To put it simply, non-core knowledge can be listened to, but core knowledge has no way. If the non-core resources are redeemed by the people in Gretel's Mage Tower and then exchanged for her, Thunderhorn is willing to pretend not to see it. At this point, the Lord of Thunder and Gretel's senior brothers and sisters have a more open attitude. During the lecture, as long as Anivia can catch up, she can listen to it. If she has any questions, she will be given guidance without discrimination. Therefore, Greet had dinner and chatted with the teacher and senior sister, reporting on the progress of the research during this period. When asking for advice, Anivia had made a breakthrough, so she happily reported it. Oh? What did you do? Gretel turned his head curiously. After Anivia advanced with the magic of promoting the reproduction of spiritual beasts, she has been working hard on this path and plans to rely on this to continue to improve. The way of reproduction is extremely profound and difficult. After all, Anivia is only a level 10 nature priest with limited power. Even with the guidance of elders, there are still some things that she can't figure out or is beyond her power. However, thanks to hard work, working around the clock every day, and Gretel's unlimited resources, even a microscope is dedicated to her, the progress is still quite good. In recent times, she has successfully pushed the mass reproduction technique to the point where it can serve high-level monsters above level 15 and adult dragons, in other words, just like her teacher. As for the adult dragon clan, Anivia is not sure yet. At the very least, the surrounding barbarian tribes sent many women to serve Bernard, not seeking status, but just to preserve seeds, but so far no one has successfully become pregnant. Even with Anivia's help, no one was able to get pregnant. She observed carefully under a microscope and confirmed that the cause of pregnancy failure was still the inability of sperm and egg to combine. In other words, the sperm successfully enters the egg, but the chromosomes cannot successfully replicate and the cells cannot divide successfully. Every time, the problem lies in those extraordinary points. Either it's broken here, or it's broken there. Bernard's side didn't work. Apia's sperm kept failing to combine with the eggs of various reindeer and various magic deer in the forest. Under Gretel's guidance, Anivia used various methods to contain fertilized eggs, using blood, serum, saline, holy water, tree sap of life. It's no use, it's no use. Even under the protection of a powerful life spell, the eggs taken out from the doe's body cannot survive for more than 12 hours after being combined with the sperm. The only thing that can hold fertilized eggs is an exclusive container modified from the necromancer's clone technique alchemy vessel. Only this kind of container can allow fertilized eggs to survive normally until they cannot divide and die. Fortunately, during the research process, Anavia made an analogy. Together with Leon Carlos, she consulted the elders of the natural god cult, and the other consulted the high-level mages from the Black Crow Swamp. From time to time, she also went to the transmutation department to recruit someone. In other words, they are using Gretel's banner as a tiger's skin, and everyone from top to bottom of the mage tower is willing to pay attention to them. The alchemy vessel of clone technique has been modified 7 times and 8 times, and after 7 changes and 8 changes, it actually turned out to be a usable thing. Teacher. We changed the clone technique container into a accelerated growth container. Oh. Greet said, but he didn't react for a moment. Accelerating growth can be regarded as the signature spell of the natural god section. Every disciple must learn it when starting. Even for a loser like Gretel, who cannot recognize plants or seeds, second and third level nature priests can communicate with each other after grabbing a handful of seeds, and they can also catalyze the seeds into vines. So, accelerated growth. Our accelerated growth is from a fertilized egg to an embryo directly. Anivia's eyebrows were filled with excitement, her cheeks were filled with 2 thin red flowers, and her whole body seemed to be shining. So far, we have used fish eggs, primary devil frog eggs, devil frog king eggs, and 3rd level to 5th level devil lizard eggs to verify them one by one. It only takes 1 day to accelerate to breaking out of the shell. Greet's breathing suddenly became rapid. This research is so important. As long as this research can be used in dragon eggs, his current research speed can be increased by 10 times, 20 times, or even 100 times. How did you change it? He couldn't help but ask. Anivia paused, took out a large roll of parchment from the space bag, unfolded it, and picked up the top roll. She pointed at the messy lines on the parchment and explained carefully. The first is the bottom of the alchemy vessel. Just tell me your thoughts. Greet shook his head and interrupted. He had also studied the cloning spell configuration, and it took him at least half a month just to memorize it. Let the disciples talk from beginning to end. Today, from the teacher to the wife, to the senior sister and him, no one has to sleep anymore. It's okay for him and his senior sister not to sleep occasionally. Teacher and his wife, they can't delay making a baby. That's it. Anivia sorted out her thoughts, flipped through the parchment roll, and pulled out another one that was particularly large and had particularly complicated lines. She used a few vines to hang the parchment in the air, pointed at the scroll and began to speak. Part of the texture on the alchemy vessel is used to maintain the internal state of the vessel. Temperature, humidity, pH, etc. Allow the cloning technique materials to maintain a normal growth environment. This cannot be moved. The idea is very clear, Gret nodded. Anivia took 2 steps forward, and a vine sprang out from her fingertips. A green leaf spread out from the tip of the vine, gently brushing against a pattern on the paper roll. This part, according to our tests, is to promote liquid circulation inside the vessel. It allows new liquid to enter, waste liquid to be discharged, and at the same time, it takes away a batch of waste materials produced during the growth process. This is also correct. When Greet learned the cloning technique, he took the notes and personal research records of Archmage Heinz. He received personal guidance from the 18th level Archmage, and these basic contents were not difficult for him. Just like a baby needs to eat, drink and excrete in the process of growth, in the process of cell division and organ growth, it also needs to absorb nutrients and metabolize. The cloned object of the cloning technique is just a piece of flesh and blood, and it will not circulate on its own. Therefore, Alchemical vessels are needed to help it circulate. And this part is used to increase the speed of cell division. In this spell configuration, we even found traces of divine magic. The cloning spell can create a body in a year. If it does not increase the speed, it is completely useless. Possible. Gretel's eyes lit up. Yes, that's it. When Greet was studying the cloning technique, he only intercepted its function of guiding somatic cells to reverse into stem cells and guiding stem cells to differentiate. As for increasing the speed of cell division, Greet has not studied it carefully at all. Anyway, the basis of ordinary treatment techniques is to increase the speed of cell division. It is just a question of higher efficiency and lower efficiency. He did not have the energy at that time. So, the cloning technique uses flesh and blood to differentiate and turn it into a body. We can't use many of its functions. We deleted some functions, modified some functions, and turned it into a culture chamber for cultivating fertilized eggs. For example, to guide somatic cells to transform into stem cells, this function is not necessary. As long as the fertilized egg divides normally, it can differentiate into an embryo normally, and the magic guidance function is not necessary. Anavia and Leon Carlos, two fellow apprentices, were ignorant, fearless and daring. Relying on the sufficient resources provided by the master, the alchemy warehouse was modified over and over again. At least dozens of improvements were made. If they were replaced by ordinary level 10 priests and level 9 necromancers, no one would even bother to change these. But after making random changes, they actually made something usable. Good guys, you guys are. Gretel took a deep breath. From fertilized eggs directly to hatched fish, frogs, and lizards. If we take this a step further and even fertilized mammalian eggs can induce birth, then it will be an artificial womb. In the previous life, countless big bosses and countless research laboratories spent countless resources on it. The latest progress is only to culture blastocysts to the early organogenesis stage. The subsequent steps, whether it is due to research ethics issues or technical difficulties, in short, cannot be carried out. Unexpectedly, he was accidentally hit by these two little guys and got it out. Have you ever tried using fertilized eggs from mice, rabbits, deer, these warm-blooded, viviparous animals? Gretel tried to suppress his heartbeat and said in a deep voice. Anavia's eyes flashed and she shook her head. Not yet. Not yet, then don't do it. Gretel breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God, the emergence of artificial wombs may have a subversive impact on social ethics and social structure. He has no concept at all in this area. His medical ethics class was basically memorized by rote and completed after passing the exam. This technology must be kept as secret as possible and not leaked. Well, next, I will go with you to take a look at this technology. If it is confirmed that there is no problem, we will start the next step of research. In which direction should we study, teacher? Anavia asked excitedly. Greet concentrated slightly. Two directions. One is animal experimentation, which further advances the experimental animals. From low-level monsters, to mid-level and high-level monsters, all the way to dragon beasts, and the offspring of dragon beasts and male dragons. Once the demonstration in this direction is completed, there is no doubt that dragon eggs can be cultivated. Is there another direction, teacher? It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1683. Gretel has already thought about another direction for improvement. The cloning technique was previously used to clone humans. Necromancers studied it over and over again. The only purpose was to add a backup body for their own family members. Magicians from other schools have to pay if they want to clone their body. Pay the boss a sum of money. You have to have a good relationship with the necromancy school. If you don't have a good relationship, you dare to leave such a life-threatening thing to someone else to prepare it? Do you dare to put it in other people's hands? Aren't you afraid that when you wake up from the alchemy vessel and open your eyes, all the magic power in your body will be locked? 7 or 8 magic weapons were pointed at you, and you were forced to sign a contract of betrayal. You sold your body, your soul, your family, your descendants. So for many years, the number of people who have used cloning has been very limited. If there are few users, there will be fewer funders to provide money, and if there are few funders to provide money, the progress of research projects will be slow. Since this spell has always been used by humans, it only needs to be ensured that humans can use it. There is no need to change the size of the alchemy vessel. Little did they know that Gretel was having fun. If it is not used by humans, it must be used by the elves. If it is not used as a whole, it must be broken down into pieces and used. Apart from other things, if it is to be used by the dragon clan, how big should the cloning alchemy vessel be made? How much does the spell output need to be increased? This thing can't just be expanded proportionally. How much content in it needs to be re-researched? What's more important is, for human babies to grow, they only need a normal natural environment. For dragon eggs to hatch normally, this one needs an open fire, that one needs severe cold, this one needs strong acid, that one needs running water. There are endless tricks. The second direction of improvement is to add interfaces to alchemy vessels, Gretel said slowly while organizing his thoughts. The added interface is divided into 3 branches. One branch allows high energy particles to hit in a directed manner to provide energy for the fertilized eggs or embryos growing in the vessel. The second branch allows the power of limited wishing technique to enter the alchemy vessel and directionally enhance the chromosome points of the embryo inside. Of course, there is also the third step, which is to allow powerful elemental power to enter the alchemy vessel and provide a suitable environment for the dragon eggs. I remember Black Crow Swamp is already working on this direction. You can communicate with them or track their progress. Anavia kept nodding and kept checking the records. At the table, the Lord of Thunder and Princess Nora looked at each other, smiled, and nodded gently. Archmage Philby looked down at her arms, thinking intently. If a part of flesh and blood is first taken, the chromosomes are modified, and then cloning is used to quickly cultivate it, and finally the potential of this new body is evaluated. By modifying a few more and cultivating a few more, can we determine which direction of chromosome modification is safe and which direction has the greatest potential for development? As for the problem of too many clones, as long as the magician does not need to keep a backup so that he has a place to return if he dies, creating a clone, killing one, creating another, and killing another is nothing more than a waste of money. Well, she wanted to keep a close eye on Gretel's research results. There is a high probability that this matter will be useful to her. Anivia accepted Gretel's arrangements and quickly took people to work. There is a saying that using fertilized eggs for rapid birth, compared with using the flesh and blood of clones, does not require a reverse process, is much faster, and consumes much less. What's more important is that what hatches from a fertilized egg is a brand new body that only needs to break out of the shell. Traditional cloning needs to regenerate the body into adulthood, prime age, and old age, and express all the advancements in the body's growth process step by step. If the person who commissioned the creation of the clone body is a level 17 mage, this body must be at least level 15. Compared to the time when frog eggs hatch, lizard eggs hatch, and pseudo-dragon eggs break out of their shells, the manufacturing time has been shortened so much, and the energy consumption has been reduced so much. Anavia followed the teacher's order and worked hard to do it. The high-level necromancer who was partnering with her immediately started wailing when she heard about the research topic. Using clone technique to cultivate dragon eggs? This is too difficult. In the conscience of heaven and earth, the necromancer really wants to use clone technique to make a dragon, even in his wildest dreams. However, so far, they are still stuck at the first level. How to make the alchemy vessel bigger? Make it twice as big, make it 10 times as big, make it 100 times as big as it can accommodate a dragon. Until now, the transformation system is still stuck in this place. Oops. It's crooked. Oops. It collapsed. Oops. It broke again. Why can't you make it yet? Isn't it just a container? The angry transmutation alchemist's eyes narrowed, and various oars flew up from beside him, along with the tongs holding the crucible, and smashed him head and face. Anyway, the skeleton beside the necromancer has already sprinted up to block the mage. The poker struck the skull on the forehead with a hollow sound, and sparks flew everywhere. Well, it's angry again, and it can't be smashed. It's not like a zombie. When you press the tongs on it, there will be a smell immediately. Skeleton is really a good thing. You think this thing is so easy to make. After taking a breath, the alchemist's tone softened a little. Try it yourself with a stick. A thin wooden stick 1 foot long is straight. If it is the same thickness and is 10 meters long, will it bend? The same goes for alchemy utensils. For magic glass, if you put a 2 meter by 2 meter glass there and fill it with water, it won't fall over. If you make a 5 meter by 10 meter glass, fill it with water, it will break immediately and let you see. Simply put, the material is not strong enough. Necromancers also understand this truth. Just like the bones of a normal corpse, it can support an ordinary skeleton, but it cannot support an abomination. For such a big man, whether it is the arm bones, leg bones, or spine, they have to carry too much force, and the bones have to be strengthened more than 10 times with negative energy. Then you can't make the magic glass thicker? Just make it twice as thick, right? How can it be so simple to make it twice as thick? The alchemist rolled his eyes. Do you think you can make it casually? If it is twice as thick, the made thing will be uneven and completely unusable. Forget about ordinary glass. If these demonized glasses are twice as thick, the power inside cannot be channeled. All. Material. Material. When the material problem was reported to Greet, he could only sigh. Any one of the 4 major sinkholes of biochemical environmental materials will require tens of thousands of people to fill them with 10, 20, 30 years of youth. If you are lucky, you will come up with a good formula, and everyone will breathe a sigh of relief. If you are not lucky, all your manpower, material and financial resources will be lost. The design has been changed. The design has been changed. What Anivia wants is the dragon egg. There is no need to change the size of the alchemy vessel, just change the interface. The alchemist who made the magic glass breathed a sigh of relief. Next door, in the room responsible for carving magic patterns, a roar immediately rang out. Why do you always change it? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1684. Gretel's disciples followed their teacher's instructions and came to ask for modifications to the alchemy vessels, which really relieved the alchemists who were doing research and development of materials. Thank God, I finally don't have to worry about utensil materials. It has to have enough strength, enough uniformity, transparency, and enough magic permeability. How easy is it? If one condition is changed, the entire formula must be changed. I was stumbling and changing over and over again, but I had no idea at all. I didn't know how much raw material I had to waste before I could try out a version. Now there are new needs for transformation, and the needs of the Nordmark mage must come first. All the manpower was transferred to work on the new renovation plan. I can finally let go of working on new materials. No matter how long this project takes, a day off is a day. Of course, those magicians who are doing the research and development of alchemical magic patterns are crying. Cry if you want, Anyway, dead Taoist friends are not dead Taoists, let's let them get off work on time for one day. Adding new interfaces to the alchemy vessel and changing the internal environment are not easy to solve. To be precise, the alchemy vessels and the magic liquid injected into them maintain a stable internal environment, allowing cells to grow smoothly. In this environment, the temperature is 0.5 degrees higher and 0.5 degrees lower, and the pH is 0.5 higher and 0.5 lower. People who grow cells in the laboratory will tell you what I am dead. As for the growth environment that dragon eggs need, if the temperature rises or falls, it starts at 100 degrees, and the pH can jump directly from 7.1 to 2.0. In this case, the magic liquid in the alchemy vessel is no longer a question of whether it can maintain a stable value, but whether it will be dried out, frozen, or whether the protein in the magic liquid will be directly denatured. The problem is, the magicians and nature priests stumbled over each other, going back and forth endlessly, and even revised the magic liquid in the alchemy liquid n times, but still could not complete the task. Frustrated, someone even proposed the ultimate plan. We don't use magic liquid as culture fluid. We directly use the magic of life to provide energy. This person's plan and funding application were sent to Greet's desk, and he was immediately slapped back with a huge X. Do you know the mass energy equation? Do you know how much energy is required to convert energy into matter? Oh, you don't know, that's okay. Just shoot it back and it's over. This plan is absolutely not feasible. After such entanglement and tossing, by the time the first batch of qualified alchemy warehouses were completed, Gretel was already running around, participating in the hatching of several batches of dragon eggs and the care of the awakening of the young dragons. With good luck, the awakening success rate of the hatchlings who were under his care was more than 2/3, which was much higher than the average success rate. The success rate of the hatchlings who were not under his care during the same period was always between 1/3 and 1/4. Swinging between. With such a record, more and more dragon clans are willing to let the Mage Tower observe the hatching of dragon eggs and collect data. Who doesn't want their children to have a safety net? After working hard to give birth to eggs, and working hard to hatch them for more than a year, one more egg can be awakened. After all, when I was pregnant, I had to gather so much energy to save an egg from hatching. On this day, Gretel was invited again to protect the dragon eggs that a silver dragon couple was about to hatch. After 3 days of hard work, he finally managed to get 3 of the 4 young dragons to awaken. He was busy sorting out the information when he heard a long groan outside. The sound was so high-pitched that it hurt his eardrums. He stopped what he was doing and looked up, only to see the sea of clouds rolling apart in front of him. A giant dragon rushed towards him, circled above his head, and rushed towards its master. "Brother Brol, you must help me." What came was a crystal dragon, its scales were crystal clear. Looking from a distance, it looked really translucent. He was flying at high speed above the clouds, and the blazing sunlight shone on him, reflecting the dazzling light. Gretel only glanced at it and then looked away. "It's so shiny and dazzling that I can't see clearly at all." He raised his hand and waved in a circle, and a circle of mist formed around him, which at least blocked the sunlight. When a crystal dragon is born, its scales are pure white. The older it gets, the more transparent it becomes. It is so transparent and so dazzling in the sunlight, it is definitely a legendary dragon. Tisk, he really can't help with the legendary dragon clan's childbirth. Gerold, what's wrong? The male silver dragon Brol jumped into the air and faced him straight up, but he didn't get too close. He is a half-step legend, and Jared is a legend. Although they are about the same age and have a good relationship, there is a huge gap between the half-step legend and the legend. Looking at Jared rushing over in a hurry, if he gets excited and shoots a flash breath or a colorful jet at him, he will be in trouble. "Broer, save my child," Crystal Dragon Jared rushed over regardless. He circled in mid-air, went around behind the silver dragon, stretched out his claws, and almost grabbed his neck. Fortunately, Silver Dragon reacted quickly, and a gust of wind surrounded him and turned around instantly. He turned around and faced Jared head-on, keeping a distance of nearly 500 meters from him. "What's the situation?" "Jared, my child has just been born and has just awakened." "What happened to your child?" "What's the situation?" "My egg is broken." "It's broken." Crystal Dragon Jared was so anxious that he was tumbling up and down in the air. The bright sunlight fell on his scales, was reflected by the transparent and thick scales, and condensed into a huge light group in the air. Silver Dragon Brol took a breath. "Your egg. I remember, you only laid one egg this time." "Yes." Crystal Dragon Jared suddenly froze his figure. "This is his second clutch of eggs." "Second clutch of eggs." In the first clutch, the couple worked hard to lay 3 eggs, barely hatching 2 and awakening 1. He is already a legend in this litter, and his wife is also half a legend. "It was already extremely difficult to get pregnant, and I only gave birth to 1 precious egg." He didn't even dare to put it in the dragon's nest on the ground, so he found a nest in the Sky Dragon City and set up overlapping magic circles, fearing that something might go wrong. Just like that, when he came back from the battle today, the alien energy attached to his body was not completely removed, and he actually broke the eggshell. "My egg is only half hatched." "It's only half hatched." Jared thumped his chest. Silver Dragon Brol took another breath of air conditioning, causing the clouds to stir on Cloud Island, and the temperature instantly dropped by 2 degrees. Before the hatchling hatches, it is completely protected by the eggshell so that it can continuously absorb energy from the outside world and grow safely. Once the shell is broken, eggs that have not hatched for 3/4 of the time are basically dead. Even if it is hatched 3/4 of the way and has the shape of a hatchling, the hatchling must stay in the same environment as the egg for the rest of the incubation period. If you stay there for enough time and have constant care from your parents, you will still have a chance to be safe and look like a normal baby dragon. If it doesn't last long enough, or the environment isn't good enough, the baby dragon will be born weak. Even if it can awaken, it won't be able to grow well in the future. As for Jared's dragon egg, it has only passed half of its incubation period. "Why did you come to me for such a dangerous thing?" Brower stopped running around in circles to avoid it, and hurriedly came over, blowing up a cold wind. "Go find Elder Batista. If that doesn't work, there are several elders in Sky Dragon City who are good at healing spells." "Don't mention it," Crystal Dragon Jared groaned, tears about to come out. "Today's battle is not going well. Many of the same people were injured. Elder Batista and the healers are very busy. Even the elf princess is helping in the wounded camp, so she really can't spare any time. If you want to save a half-hatched dragon egg, it's not necessarily impossible to save it, but the cost of saving it is too high." As far as Crystal Dragon Jared knew, about 2,000 years ago, there was a legendary 3rd-level red dragon whose egg was broken when it was half-hatched. This legendary dragon stayed close to him for 10 years and used top-notch magic that could only be used by the legendary 3rd level to save the child. In this way, after the child was born, he was still weak for a long time, unable to learn knowledge, and unable to activate dragon magic. After raising it for another 100 years, the child has eaten all kinds of treasures, enough to create a legend. If it were normal times, the elders would work hard and help the children set up magic circles. But now, it is self-evident which is more important, the living adult dragon or the unhatched dragon egg. I have no choice but to look for you. Brol, among the healers I know, you are the only one who is still available, and you are the only one who can help me." Silver Dragon Brol looked troubled. He is a healer, and half of the silver dragons can be healers. However, he is only a half-step legend, and his strength level is completely insufficient. Moreover, he is not good at saving dragon eggs that are broken in advance. "Broer, come with me," Crystal Dragon hurriedly told the situation. Seeing his friend pondering, he pounced on him again. The wind and clouds were moving around me, heading towards the silver dragon, and at the same time, I raised my voice and shouted. "The child's mother is protecting the dragon egg at home, but she can't protect it for long. You have to come with me quickly dash. Wait. Wait. I can't help you if I go with you." Brower struggled to free himself again. Seeing that the crystal dragon was becoming more and more impatient, an idea flashed in his mind and he threw himself down to the ground. "Mage Nordmark. Mage Nordmark, did you hear what happened just now?" "I heard it." Gretel waved away the clouds helplessly and revealed his face. These two people shouted so loudly just now that the entire cloud island was shaken. Who couldn't hear it? But so what if I heard it? He is also a beginner when it comes to dragon egg hatching. He only observes and compiles data. Not to mention the broken dragon eggs, even if there were no broken dragon eggs, he couldn't take over. "Can I ask you a favor?" Silver Dragon Broll descended in front of him and asked expectantly. Greet opened her mouth, then closed it, opened her mouth again, and closed it again. "You shouldn't ask this question." "How should I answer it?" "Since ancient times, the doctor has not knocked on the door, and the father of the child has not yet opened his mouth or made a request. What if he doesn't believe me? What if he thinks that I, a level 17 healer, am too low to deal with legendary level problems? What if he just doesn't like it? Just like the chromatic dragons, I received the least orders, and many of them were unwilling for me to take care of the awakening hatchlings. Or are you asking me for help, which is considered a consultation?" Greet said nothing. Silver Dragon Brawl paused, turned his head, and winked fiercely at the crystal dragon flying above. "Come down quickly. You haven't asked yet. Although this Nordmark mage is of low level, he has accomplished so many things during this time. What many dragons couldn't do was accomplished by him." The eyes as big as ice discs blinked, and Greet, who was watching from a close distance, was horrified to see it. The dragons were squinting, the visual effect was too scary. Fortunately, the crystal dragon above got what his friend wanted, and quickly flew down, folded his wings, and bowed his head to Greet. "Mage Nordmark, can you please come with me and take a look at my child? I'm not good at it either." Gretel shied away, not taking it very seriously. The problem among doctors is that when they see a new case, they will get close to it with their heads sharpened and their eyes rolled at the patient's family. It doesn't matter if it's good or not, it doesn't matter if you have the right to prescribe it, at least it opens your eyes. The next time you encounter it, you will know this is how you should handle this situation, or this is not the right way to handle this situation. Just go over and take a look. Take a look, come up with an idea, and do your best. If you really can't save him, that's the child, that child." Greet let out a long sigh. "Yes, I really need to go there." He nodded, and Crystal Dragon Jared immediately leaned down, and the clouds and mist condensed on his body, freezing it into a snow saddle. Greet climbed up on all fours, and Jared let out a long groan and flew into the air. The cloud island where the silver dragon hatched its eggs was originally floating in the mid-air, and its height was not particularly far from Sky Dragon City. After Gretel integrated the remaining information on the crystal dragon's back, he felt his body light up and floated upward. The crystal dragon has already plunged in. The snow saddle dispersed and spread out, forming a long slide on the side of the crystal dragon. Greet turned around on the spot, sat on the slide and slid down. He took a few steps forward and stood squarely in front of another crystal dragon. The female crystal dragon was coiled into a ball, and the surrounding aura was dense, shrouding a dragon egg looming. Greet waited for the husband and wife to finish their exchange, then released his spiritual power to explore the dragon egg. As soon as it dropped, his brows furrowed. Very weak breath of life. During this period, he ran around and collected data. He also saw a lot of dragon eggs during the same period, and none were so weak. Can a dragon egg whose shell has been broken really be saved? Greet stood quietly beside him, frowning, thinking hard. The silver dragon Brol also followed, throwing handfuls of healing spells at the dragon eggs, writing and drawing, designing magic circles, and was busy running around. I was busy until the sunset, sighed and shook my head. I tried my best. Crystal Dragon Broad can also see that his friend really tried his best. But it was no use trying his best. The aura of his child and his dragon egg was still weakening little by little. He looked at Gretel tentatively. Mage Nordmark. I have a way, it might be useful. Gretel interrupted his inquiry. But there is no guarantee that I can be rescued. Furthermore, I still need my disciples and at least one high-level necromancer to help with debugging. Are you willing to let them come? Thanks to @bookfriend 20180420114820897 for the 500 starting coin reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1685. Necromancer. Crystal Dragon Jared twisted his long neck, and his first reaction was to spit out a flash of dragon breath, burning the necromancer who might have set foot on his territory to ashes. The crystal dragon has a very pure nature. It can't bear dirt even more than the silver dragon, and it can't bear the sand in its eyes even more than the silver dragon. The young natural priest who is a disciple of Master Nordmark is a good girl with a very pleasant smell. But the necromancer, let alone entering the core of his dragon's nest and taking care of his dragon eggs, would be damned even if he sets foot in his dragon's nest. Damn it! He shook his scales subconsciously, as if to shake off something dirty. The light of the stars and the moon shines on the transparent scales, and is refracted by the scales into a cold arc of light, which spins around in the dragon's nest. His wife, Crystal Dragon Carolina, turned her head angrily and hummed. Gerold. Think of the children. Think of this child. When you were running around looking for the savior, I was protecting him until I was very tired. That was the dragon egg I gave birth to after working hard, condensing my strength for half a year, and conditioning it bit by bit. Our second clutch of eggs is probably our last clutch of eggs in this life. I am a half-step legend. How easy is it for me to protect the children of legends? For the sake of the children, nothing can be tolerated. When his wife snorted, Jared could only restrain his pressure and turn to look at Greed. When he spoke again, his tone softened a bit, and even sounded a bit pleading. Does it have to be a necromancer? Well, this method comes from the 8th level necromancy spell clone technique. Gretel organized his thoughts and carefully explained. It takes the structure of the spell and its alchemy vessels as the main body, with some other content mixed in. Anivia is from the natural school, and her level is not high enough. It is better to have a necromancer to look after it. Crystal Dragon Jared fell silent. He turned to look at his wife, and then at the dragon egg in his arms. He lowered his head, almost tucking his head under his wings. Greed observed the words and made another suggestion. How about, send your child to the mage tower? There are many nature priests there, and high-level nature priests are watching. If the situation changes, there is still time to help. In fact, the natural priest is not the key. The key is that if the child is not placed in the dragon's nest, the necromancer will not be in the dragon's nest. If you can't see it, at least your mind won't be bothered, right? Jared became even more silent. He pulled out his buried head from under the wings, took 2 steps on tiptoes, and came close to his wife, wanting to nuzzle his child. He was not angry when his wife flapped her wings away, he just stared at the dragon egg in his wife's arms. Compared with the half-step legendary dragon clan, the dragon egg is only a little smaller, and is caged in a halo of halo. My wife has tried her best. Jared sighed secretly. Next to him, Brol, the silver dragon, flew up and snorted impatiently. What time has it been and you are still hesitating? The life of the child is important. Necromancer, what happened to the necromancer? In the territory of Andre and his wife, in the Mage Tower, aren't there still a group of necromancers walking around? But those necromancers will not enter their dragon lair. There will be no direct contact with their children. Jared really wanted to spurt it back. However, the world is big and the child is the biggest. As long as the child can be saved, anything can be tolerated and anything should be tolerated. He took a deep breath, exhaled it slowly, and lowered his head to Gretel. Master Nordmark, please help me and save my child. You have the final say on who to call and what method to use. Greet looked intently at the huge dragon head in front of him. The legendary dragon was so huge that even with its head resting on the ground, it was still taller than him. As for the ability to meet each other's eyes and see the sincere eyes of the other party, sorry, it doesn't exist. With such huge pupils, he can't see anything except his own figure in a full-length mirror. I'll do my best, he sighed softly. Don't worry, I will do my best when it comes to the child. By the way, you must also ensure the safety of the people who come up, whether they are necromancers or not. Even if the child is not saved in the end, you must ensure their safety. He called the following and asked his teacher for instructions. Soon, Anivia and a specially selected necromancer teleported from the Thunder Lord's residence carrying newly created alchemy vessels. Silver Dragon Brol flew over to pick them up personally. After paying homage to the elf princess, he flew back to the crystal dragon's nest carrying 2 people and an alchemy vessel larger than a coffin. At this point, Gretel could only watch on the sidelines, watching Anivia and the necromancer working hand in hand. One spawned vines, and the other flew out countless mage hands, solidifying the ground around the alchemy vessel. Following the crystal dragon's command, it connected to the energy network in the dragon's nest to charge the alchemy vessel. The magic array lit up piece by piece. Anivia stood nearby, watching the skinny necromancer almost lying on the ground, touching the magic circle inch by inch, wanting to rub his forehead against every line. After the inspection is completed, he lifts up the alchemy vessel, instructs the crystal dragon to put the dragon egg in, and close the lid. With a bang, the magic array connected with the alchemy vessel, and the magic transmission lines on the alchemy vessel also lit up one by one. For a moment, the entire vessel shone brightly, and endless magic runes floated and floated. Anivia and the necromancer, one on each side, observed the dragon eggs in the alchemy vessel, and it took a long time before they breathed a sigh of relief. Saved for now. Needless to say, the crystal dragon couple also felt this, and their expressions relaxed a lot after the cloning technique's alchemy vessel is activated. Even without the protection of the crystal dragon's spell, the aura of the dragon egg will no longer be weakened. As for whether it can grow up safely and survive until the time of hatching, that is another matter, and we must continue to observe. Can it be saved until it hatches? Greet had already asked. Anivia pondered for a moment, glanced at the 3 giant dragons around her, and then respectfully bowed her head and reported to Gretel. There are 2 options now. The first is to immediately activate the growth-promoting function of the alchemy cabin. With the help of magic, the young dragon in the eggshell will immediately grow to be able to break the shell. Can it be done? Crystal Dragon and his wife's eyes lit up. Especially the female crystal dragon Carolina, who couldn't help but take 2 steps forward, her wet nose almost touching the alchemy warehouse. What are you waiting for? In the current alchemy warehouse, we have tried it with magic lizards, pseudo-dragons, and even dragon beast eggs, and they can induce fertilized eggs to break through in a short time. However, we have not tried it with dragon eggs, and we don't know what will happen. What is the problem? Anivia cautiously suggested. Dragon eggs require a special environment to hatch. The combination of the special environment and the spawning spell has been debugged, but we are not completely sure. If we rush to spawn the eggs, the hatched dragons may not grow well. The crystal dragon couple and silver dragon brawl side together. The three giant dragons sighed at the same time, their voices rolling like thunder. Even though they had raised their heads and tried to keep their breath as far away from humans as possible, the strong wind still made Anavia unsteady on her feet. Fortunately, no matter whether it is a crystal dragon or a silver dragon, at a high level, the spell manipulation of wind aspect is an instinct engraved in the blood. After sorting out the wind in time, the environment near the dragon's nest returned to normal. You just said 2 options. There is another one. What is that? The other option is to not activate the growth promoting function and maintain the environment required for the dragon egg to hatch until the hatchling hatches. This option takes longer and is relatively safer. However, can the alchemy vessel last for such a long time? This doesn't work, that doesn't work either. There is a problem with this, there is a problem with that. The crystal dragon couple couldn't complain. As their friend, Silver Dragon Broll could just put on a white face. He pawed anxiously. So is there any solution that works? I'm so sorry about this. Greed had no choice but to take a step and stop him in front of the disciple. The plan proposed by Anavia is still under development and is not fully mature. If it were not for the sake of the children, she would not come up with it immediately. It is a bit lacking, so I have to endure it. Then, we can only wait for you to decide which plan to adopt, Gretel said sincerely. Sorry, our capabilities are limited and there is no way to ensure everything. All I can do, is to do my best. The crystal dragon couple looked at each other. After a moment, Jared whispered. Choose to. Try to delay as long as possible. If something goes wrong, can you still invite the elders to come and see? Choose the first one, he said, but the female crystal dragon changed her mind. There was a flash of light in the dragon's nest, and the female crystal dragon had turned into a human form. She flicked her clean long hair and walked forward quickly. Quick decision, if you can get results quickly, get results as soon as possible. Elders have no research in this area. Instead of waiting for them to take their time, it's better to take a gamble quickly. But we have entrusted Master Nordmark. Since we believe in him, we must believe it to the end. Carolina has rushed to the alchemy vessel, stroking the wall of the warehouse with gold threads, leaning forward and gently touching her cheek. A while. Then, she stepped back, turned around, faced Gretel, and bowed deeply. Mage Nordmark. Our child will be left to you. Don't worry, you have tried your best. We understand that this child, even if we cannot save it, we also know in our hearts that it is not you who broke the eggshell. Greed's face also became serious. He nodded heavily and looked at Anavia. The young nature priest bowed, looked at the necromancer, and pulled the handbrake with both hands at the same time. The alchemy warehouse roared. Thanks to @book friend 20230704213724529 for the reward of 5,000 starting coins. Thanks to @wit who took the makeup exam for the 100 starting coins reward.